The 2002 World Cup breaks new ground. It's being hosted by two countries jointly, Japan and South Korea. It's certainly a very, very brave experiment by FIFA to actually stage the competition in two different countries with all the flying time involved between the two. It could be something of a nightmare for media men trying to get from one game to another. Having said that, Japan has already staged the Olympic Games and so has Korea, so they both know what they're doing. I think they'll be excellent hosts, and I hope the organisation works smoothly. One thing's for sure, it's still the World Cup, and we'll all be going full of hope and optimism. When you look back over the World Cup and all the great matches that have been played, you like to think there have been some really sporting moments as well as some very tense ones. I always think about that match in 1970 in Mexico. In fact, it was in Guadalajara where England played Brazil. It was a really tight game between the two nations who many people thought were the best in the world at that time. Brazil won narrowly. In fact, it was 1-0, scored by Jairzinho. But the performance of England's Bobby Moore that day, as captain and chief defender, was quite outstanding. Matched only, of course, by the display of his great adversary, Pelé of Brazil. And at the end of the match, when the referee blew for time, there was a wonderful sporting moment between the two, because they exchanged shirts on the pitch long before that custom became so commonplace. So the most sporting moment for me of the whole World Cups down the years was the moment when Bobby Moore and Pelé showed mutual appreciation for two great performances. One of the funniest questions I ever get asked about covering the World Cup as a commentator is, who is the player with the worst haircut you ever saw? And believe it or not, I can answer it, and you'll all know him. The Colombian Valderrama. Do you remember the big ginger locks and the curly hair and the dreadlocks and all the rest of it? I don't know how to describe it really, it was that bad, but you'll know what I mean. Yes, for me he was a great player and a great character, but Valderrama of Colombia gets my vote as the player with the worst haircut in World Cup history. Surprise team in the 2002 World Cup finals. No doubt at all about the biggest shock among the qualifiers. It's Senegal from Africa, who've never been anywhere near the World Cup finals before. They booked their place very early in the qualifying competition, along with 4 other African nations, some of them a lot better known, like Cameroon, who've been there before. But surprise finalists indeed. Who would have thought that Senegal would be in the World Cup in Japan in 2002? Who do I think will win the World Cup in 2002? Well, my favourites at this range are Argentina, who've had a fantastic qualifying competition and have now got great players operating all over the world. I think they're likely to get the better of the likes of France and Italy, and it could be Argentina winning the World Cup for what would be the 3rd time. Come on, England, fulfil your potential before I retire.